some things are happening here. I think,
Yep.
let's see, Judy is now fully vaccinated.
Yay! Fully
I'm
immunized. It's the fully immunized, they say. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
right. I got my first shot, and I'm second one
Yeah.
coming up on April 20th. So,
Great.
so hooray for us.
Yeah.
Yay.
Let's just stay away from all those variants, right?
Yes. Well, actually, let's talk a little bit. I don't want to obsess on
Ooh,
COVID, but let's
yeah.
just talk a little bit about that here. And I'm actually
Why?
gonna,
You know
uh,
something about that? Oh, about what's going on in Cambridge. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So I wanted
All right.
to, just say whoops.
Oh,
I'm,
you
I'm,
got it?
I'm, yeah, I'm, there's always some kind of fiddling around here to
Sure.
get where I
Yeah.
want to go. Um, but here we go. The embarrassment of Zoom silliness here.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I wanted to speak to. Okay, so hopefully that's all visible. Yes.
Yes, it is.
All righty. So the numbers are continuing to climb. For a while, they were actually accelerating ever so slightly, which was
Yeah.
kind of annoying me. But in the last week or so, there seems to be some attenuation that is discernible here.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're really seeing is kind of this, it's like a battle now between the rate of vaccination and the rate at which these variants are kind of rolling themselves out. And it very much varies on different parts of the country. But here in Massachusetts, and specifically in Cambridge, it seems like the vaccinations are just barely starting to get the upper hand now.
But this is only people that get tested, right?
Right. This is people test,
So
which is
maybe
it's
that's already who
it's an
knows?
indicator of what
Yeah.
is. The actual number
Right.
of people infected are certainly higher than that.
Right.
But just in terms of the testing.
Right.
Now but the thing is I do get read a lot into the 7-day averages. So we
Yes.
had the early peak, almost a year ago now.
Yeah.
And then we had the big fall rush into the post year. And then very recently it was like climbing again. Oh, no. But it seems to be breaking and coming down again now. So again, my hope is renewed. Now, I have to say that there's one thing a friend posted. It was from a statistical forecaster of some not with some knowledge about infectious diseases. And I
Yeah.
actually, because it's nice to see things that are hopeful.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
what I saw, it was actually posted on Facebook, but and I've been put in touch with this statistical person, so
Wow,
maybe I
look
get
at
a little bit
this.
more insight about it. But
Yeah.
basically, what it does is it superimposes the original COVID-19, which seems to be fading away, the new variant. Now, there may be another variant to add in on
There's
the
a couple
graph there.
more. There's the Brazilian, and then
Right.
whatever.
So there may be a little bit more to pad into that. But
Yeah.
basically, if you think of it just in terms of, infections, what the forecasters, which is factoring in a lot of things, including
Sure.
susceptibility,
Yeah.
vaccine rates,
Right.
the spread of the different variants, which is
Yeah.
all kind of, is
Right.
quantified.
Yeah.
So you make a model, and the model basically suggests, all right, we are at a little bit of a rise, around the country still, but
Yeah.
there's at least, according to some forecasters, there may come a point in mid-May where that just starts just tailing off, and then possibly even sometime in the summer, late summer, we actually could be largely looking in the rearview mirror. And I put this picture up here only because it was
Seems
one of the more
positive.
hopeful things I had
Yeah.
seen in a good long while, so I kind of thought it was
Yeah.
worth mentioning, is that this is not something that has to be seen as forever.
Right.
I was a little horrified, by the way, to
What?
see them in a Texas Major League Baseball stadium basically saying
Oh.
100% capacity. I said, maybe
Oh.
that's a little too soon.
Texas has opened up a while ago. I mean, they don't care.
I know,
Yeah.
but their numbers aren't looking horrible right now. So
I know. Well, all this, I haven't read it. There's a whole thing about Sweden and how did they fare, because they never did
yeah.
any.
You know
So
what?
I mean, who
you
knows?
achieve herd immunity in a variety of ways. One is
That's
just
right.
let everybody get
Let everybody
infected,
die,
right?
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's one way to get through it, right? Yeah, it's
I don't
terrible.
know.
Yeah. So anyway, so
Okay.
that's really what I just wanted to say about COVID, and I don't think there's a whole lot more to say. Actually, one thing that's kind of related, though, is that the schools are largely opening for the lower grades already.
Well, it's a
It was
state mandate. Yeah.
Right, but it was like in Cambridge, I think it was like, I forget what, I mean, you still have some opt-outs, but it was something
I
like,
know, yeah, there's about 600 kids in the high school out of what, 1,500 or
yeah, right. So, and
1,200?
so
Yeah,
later toward the
yeah.
end of April is when that should be kind of
Well,
essentially opening up again.
oh, because they have to go, because I know kids that don't want to go. Well,
Right,
one kid.
right. Well, then that's going to be an issue is
Well,
a lot of people are getting
well,
used to this.
well, it's just that they didn't think it was worth it. But anyway,
Right, but actually, the other thing too is that a lot of businesses now, and office space, lab researchers, and
mhm.
academic people, whatever, have to some degree become acclimated to these new possibilities of remote work.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
and it's going to be interesting to see
yeah.
how things really shake out quantitatively in terms of vacancies and occupancy
Oh
and
gosh,
in
yeah.
places in Kendall Square, which
Yeah, I
were
know all those.
absolutely vacant for a good while.
Well, I'm wondering how much lab work can be done remotely.
Uh,
Apparently, it
the
can do
lab
some.
work is
Yeah,
some, but for the most part, like real wet lab
yeah.
stuff, that those are the people who had to come in for sure.
So
But there's a lot of other work.
isn't
That's
that
a
a lot
lot
of
of it.
Kendall Square? Yeah,
Yeah, but that's not all of it. And if you were a
that's true.
person who was
Yeah,
doing the statistical analysis and
right.
doing software development work
Yeah.
or whatever, so for somebody like that, it's a whole nother story.
We won't know the whole, really, the
Right.
outcome of this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, Harvard Summer School, I'll be teaching Harvard Summer School again.
Hmm.
That's 100% remote this summer. But
Yeah,
the word already is that for Harvard, and that includes Harvard Extension School, so my
yeah.
fall classes are planned to be
In
in
person.
person.
Yeah.
But the truth is now is that there's this whole new market has opened up for online learning now that accelerate. I mean, that's been opening for years, but it's
I
now
know,
accelerated because of
but
this.
who's going to pay for Harvard education just to do it remotely? I'm
Well,
sorry.
I mean, but if it's a cut rate deal to just take the classes through
I'm not
extension
talking
school, for
about what you
example,
do. I'm talking about regular
right?
Harvard.
Well, there's going to be a little bit of a day of
Yeah.
reckoning for some of the
Yeah.
major universities,
I know. I know.
because the mythology of the on-campus
Yeah.
experience as
I
the
know.
all end all may have been a little broken now,
Yeah.
So
A little
let's
side,
see.
real quick side thing about Harvard. I'm really into March Madness or whatever, although the women weren't allowed to use it, which I didn't know that. Anyway, the Final Four. So I watched a lot of the games. What I just learned was that none of the Ivy Leagues they canceled all their seasons this year. Did you know that?
I think I vaguely
So
remember
that they
that.
weren't, and not that they're always in the NCAA. Sometimes they get a 16th seed, but yeah. So they elected not to. So it really was a COVID championship in the sense of who could actually go through all this, but it still was fun, especially Stanford women. Yes, I really excited about that.
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be actually able to
What?
watch real baseball games
I
again.
know. I was thinking about you. I was thinking, boring. I don't. The Red Sox. I guess they won last night, right?
Oh, they kicked some serious butt last night,
Well, it's
actually.
about time. What, 3 games they lost? I don't know.
At home. I know it was
I know.
shameful. It really
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's
Yeah.
enough
But it was
about that.
great to
Yeah.
see. Great to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, around town, oh yeah, let me
Around
say
town.
one other thing about
Okay.
the schools is that
Yes.
coming up, I think maybe it's actually, is it tomorrow? They're having
Oh, the 7th?
the it's
No.
either tomorrow or Thursday. They're
Yeah.
having
Some big meeting, right?
they're having
Oh,
the
the
sort
interviews,
of
right?
the interviews for
Oh,
the
yeah.
public and whatever of the
Right.
candidates, the three
Yes.
candidates who
That's
were
right.
kind of pre-chosen for school superintendent.
You have that on your website, right?
Yeah, it's
Those
on the
dates? Oh,
website.
good. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then there's a school committee has now scheduled a meeting for, I guess, early next week where they're going to decide.
Really? So
So
that's, wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're doing final interviews and then making a decision. There's a bit of a rumor going around from people on the inside
Yeah.
that they already knew who they were going to pick. So
Huh.
we'll see if that turns out to be true. So,
Was it a
you know,
national search? I don't even remember. I didn't
they,
follow it
I
all.
think they put the word out and they
Yeah,
got,
through the
they
networks.
did
Yeah.
get applicants from out of state.
Okay.
One of them is at least one of them is from out of state.
Mhm.
So we'll see how it shakes out, but anyway, I will say no more, but that's happening. So, we'll see. Um,
Good.
So let's talk a little bit about what's happening here on the sort of civic
Yeah,
political front.
yeah.
Um, so they did have a city council meeting last night.
Now they've
Uh,
had a couple since we've met. They've
yes,
had a few.
that's
I think
true.
they've had
That's
at
true.
least three, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, just to be upfront about it, prior to every council meeting for years, I always write my little, I pick what I consider to
Comments
be
to
the,
follow, you usually say.
right.
Yeah.
Well, the thing
Yeah.
is that, I've been trying to
You'll,
put it
yeah,
up as early as I could without
sure.
comment,
Yes.
and then make some
Yeah.
comments and some
Yeah.
additional details before the
Yeah.
meeting. Honestly, though, the topics of the meeting that happened last night, they just didn't interest me.
Yeah.
And
I
I was sitting there
agree. Well,
going like,
except
oh, I
the
want to be,
design, yeah, the design one was interesting, but
but the thing is, if there's just one thing that gets me a little
yeah,
jazzed, it's kind of
right,
hard to get your
right.
heart, you get spirits up to write
I
anything
know.
about something when it's just sort of, a bowl full of nothing, you know. But but I have been sort of just trying to write immediately after the fact, just and even during the meeting, actually, just put up the results of what's happening in the meeting, kind of a live
You
update.
put actions, but you don't have any comments though,
No
right?
commentary. I mean, I will put comments in next time around, I'm
I
sure, but
thought, yeah, I thought last night there was an awful lot of time spent on one of the city managers' appointments.
actually, that's actually something worth mentioning,
Yeah, I mean,
but
it
it's one
really
of
went
those things
on.
that
Yeah,
it's actually kind of an awkward thing to comment on because people are
yeah.
so quick to judge.
I
But
mean,
there was
they can't nix that, right?
no, they can't. So the way it works under our
Yeah,
charter
yeah,
is if it was a strong mayor system, appointments are typically just the province of the mayor. In
right,
our system, it's the province of the city manager,
right.
and virtually none of them require city council approval. The only exceptions are the appointments to boards that were created after the fact. So things like the Cambridge
Oh,
Housing Authority,
I see.
the appointees for Cambridge
What if,
Redevelopment
I was
Authority.
going
I
to
think
say that one, yeah.
they may be the only two, I believe. But otherwise, it's the manager just informs the council of
Hmm.
the appointments, And I actually like that system because, if you were to politicize
Every
all
single thing, yeah.
appointments, and
Yeah.
you actually saw a hint of like the worst
Oh,
of what could
definitely.
happen as
Yes,
part of the rhetoric from some of our beloved
yes,
counselors last
yeah,
night.
yeah.
All right, so there was one person, I'm not going to name the name here, but it was person appointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Hmm.
Seemed like, as Dennis Carlone said, looks great. The resume, this looks
It's a
great.
woman, right? A female?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it looks like a really great appointment,
yeah.
congratulations to the manager. But because of ethnic and racial initiatives, Councillor Mallon started the ball rolling,
I know.
basically questioning the city
There was
manager's
a
appointment.
black and brown and, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, and the manager flat out said, look, if in the
We-
last 10 months,
Yeah,
of all the appointments I've made to boards and commissions,
yeah,
50% are persons of color.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
said, so, I mean, if I
yeah.
was Louis, I'd be basically saying, so cut me some slack, will you? But no, no, no. So it devolved, and it wasn't just Malin. It was
No,
Malin, then Sabrina
G-Vent, yeah.
Wheeler.
Mhm.
To a lesser degree, it was Patty Nolan and Mark
Yeah.
McGovern. Even a little jab at the end from Sumbul Siddiqui about how urgent this is.
Oh, I didn't.
Where they were basically suggesting that for things like the Board of Zoning Appeals or Planning Board or anything involving housing, Mr. Manager, you better just make sure you appoint people who, we consider to be sort of the appropriate choices here. And I was squirming listening to
Mm.
some of this stuff, honestly.
Well, again, the issue of payment came up for some of these positions, which Carlone has raised in the past, and then Jivan Sabrina Wheeler raised it. My snarky comment to you in an email was, take it out of your salary then. Let's make that very generous counselor salary, cut out a couple $1,000s and give it to
That's
the
right.
public.
Throw
Why
them a
not?
bone here. At
Yeah,
least cover
because-
some of their incidentals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
how do you feel about that? I mean, it does require a little more expertise than your average commissioner.
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know?
So
And time commitment. My God.
Right. Right. And it's for that reason that I think
Yeah.
that, and vote, by the way, as you and I know, because we've served
Yeah.
on advisory committees, if
No
a meeting,
payment, right?
no payment, right? So if it's a board or commission
Yeah.
that meets once a month and it's
Yeah.
strictly advisory,
Yeah.
and you just sort of be there, try and offer good wisdom and
Right,
whatever.
but nothing like the planning board or the
Right.
zoning appeal.
So
Geez.
there's
Yeah.
a few boards,
Yeah.
planning board, board of zoning appeals come to mind probably above
Yeah.
others,
Yeah.
that require a lot more input and sticking your neck out too. You're
Yeah.
actually kind of in a position where somebody's going to start sort of ripping you to
Yeah, your
shreds in
vote
social media.
matters, and yeah, it just, yeah.
Right. So I think there is a more of a commitment to those. Now, is money what's going to actually make the difference in
Yeah.
terms of representation,
No,
representativeness of these
no,
boards?
because they could never give enough.
Don't
I
see
mean,
it.
no. But I do
Yeah.
think something. I mean, it just seems like you're asking an awful lot of people. But if they find people willing to do that,
Well,
I don't
in once upon a time, they didn't have alternates on some of these boards.
Oh, right,
And one
yeah.
of the modifications that has been made over the years is they expanded the membership so that
Okay.
there would be alternates. And so that if a
Right.
person wasn't around for a meeting or opted out for whatever reason, one of the alternates would step in and then become a full voting member for the purposes of
But
that
just that
matter.
meeting. But then they could not vote on other matters if they hadn't been in that
Right. I
meeting,
think,
right?
right. And this varies,
Yeah.
I think, depending on the
Right.
commissions, but I think in the
Right.
planning board, you have to have been, at least the
That's
rule of interpretation, you
right.
had to
That's
be
the
there
one I
for the
was
first
thinking of.
hearing,
Right.
right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But so they were factoring in some flexibility so that if it did become burdensome, that there could be a little easing up, and
Yeah.
maybe they should explore that a little bit more,
Yes.
so that it's,
Yes,
not.
anyway, yeah, it just, yeah.
But the thing is that the people who are on, they choose to do it. The biggest problem, and I think the city manager kind of alluded to this,
Yeah.
and I think he kind of laughed a little bit when somebody mentioned something about this last night. The problem isn't, whether you pay them or not. The problem is that there are so few people who really do want to do it. I mean,
Right.
and if you think
Right.
about it,
Yeah.
for recycling advisory committee,
Yeah.
it tended to be people who were kind of gung ho for recycling, right? If you were, so some of these boards or commissions tend to be, I never quite knew the distinction, board commission, I think it's the
Yeah.
same thing in a way,
Yeah.
but some of these ones are kind of like advocacy,
Mhm.
more advocacy than anything else. Like
Yes.
you were on the women's
Yes.
commission for a time,
Oh, a
so
long time.
years
Yeah.
ago, so I presume that,
Yeah.
that was not just a representative sample of the population of
Well,
Cambridge.
actually, it was, they had their issues around, you're right, minority, well, we called it then minority representation. It was an ongoing issue in the women's movement.
Right.
And certainly when I served, we had older and younger women, but not necessarily, and then later it changed.
What, there weren't 50% men on the women's commission?
Oh, stop, get out
Wait,
of
but
here.
that's not representative then.
Hey, they
Right?
moved the office, I forget where, they moved the office next to the animal commission at some point.
Really?
I think that was either early on, so you got some, this is a long time ago, things. have
Yeah.
changed. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, the only point I was trying to
Yeah.
make was that some of these boards and commissions are, by their very nature, they're structured as advisory and more advocacy oriented. The Cambridge Bicycle Committee, for example,
Oh, yeah.
is not, saying gung ho, we need to make it easier for cars, right?
Right, exactly.
It's their nature. But then
Yes.
there are other ones that are kind of quasi judicial in their role, like Board
Right.
of Zoning Appeals
That's right.
and Planning
Right.
Board, where
Right.
you really want to have some expertise on the
Yeah, you
board.
have to, yeah.
And Dennis Carlone seemed to think that, well, if you paid them somehow, you would get that. I'm not so sure about that, because I think we have such a wealth of people in the city that, have the qualifications for so many of them. It's really the issue of, do you really want to serve?
Right. I mean,
And
community development is the, you could say they're the paid one, because they're always at the planning. I don't know about zoning appeal, but I know they're always at the planning board meeting,
well,
so.
I mean, the thing is, all of these boards are staffed. So there are city staff that are available, but in terms of who makes
That's
the
true.
decisions,
Right.
those are citizen positions, right?
But do they have like executive directors? Is there an executive director that gets
Well,
paid
one
for the
of
planning board? No,
it's kind of an interesting question, because
because there is a women's
sometimes,
commission and well, not the
The way
recycling.
it's supposed to
Yeah.
work is supposed to be like the chair of the
Yeah,
commission is supposed to be a member, not the executive
that's right.
director or a
That's
city
right.
staff person.
That's what it was with the recycling. Because we
Yes,
didn't have an, right,
right. But the thing is so sometimes,
yeah,
maybe because there's no assertion of the committee to have its own separate chair, they
yeah.
will basically defer to the city staff to basically run things.
That,
And
yes,
for me
yeah,
personally, that's fine, for advisory committees if it seems to work well that
yeah,
way.
which is
But
what we do with the recycling with Mike Orr does that. There's a
yeah,
chairperson, but he's there. Yeah.
yeah, but you would have a potential problem in something like a planning board if in
Oh,
fact
yeah,
it was a city
right,
staff person,
right.
who was sort of basically deciding what you can vote on and when you can vote and whatever. So you
Yeah,
wanted
no,
some of these things to be somewhat
it's
insulated.
interesting comments about this. You're right. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Now, are these various boards really properly representative? Probably not. But
Right,
that in and of itself is not a disqualifying
right.
thing from my point of view. I mean, the question is, are they good at their job?
Yes.
As I think Dennis Carlone pointed out, it said, and two counselors were arguing why we should have the planning board should be somehow in a city that's 2/3 renters, that somehow the planning board should be 2/3 renters. You know,
What?
well, he didn't say it exactly as
I
explicitly
know.
as that.
I know. I know.
And I think he was suggesting there was only one person who was a renter. I don't actually see that as relevant,
Well,
honestly.
there's two people on the council that are renters.
Okay, that was on the council, but I was thinking on the
Yeah.
planning board.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that.
Right. But the thing is, for the planning board, as Dennis Carlone pointed out, for anything special permits regarding housing, he couldn't think of a single case when in fact they'd ever denied a permit for these housing developments and stuff. So, the notion that somehow, that they're unrepresentative, therefore their
Yeah,
wisdom should be questioned is a little odd to me,
I don't know.
quite honestly.
Whatever.
But
All right.
honestly, and I'll just
Yeah,
say this last point about it. I felt such discomfort having city councilors
yeah.
basically, with a person's name out there,
I know. It was
effectively
uncalled
saying like,
for.
how dare you
And they didn't vote
be
for it,
appointed?
or they
And
didn't.
it's not the council's
I
choice
know.
to begin with, you know?
That was bad. I didn't like
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the thing is, if you want to have a completely separate discussion about
Mhm.
representativeness on
Right.
boards and commissions,
Yeah.
then do that. Do that as part of some government operations committee
Right.
meeting. Don't take the
I know.
opportunity of a particular individual's
I
appointment
know. It was really
to somehow
embarrassing.
call into
Yeah,
question that person's legitimacy.
I
I mean, that
know.
was just rude.
Yep.
So
They'll
anyways,
remember that person.
yeah. So anyway, so that was one other thing. There was one
Yeah.
other item there was a city council order. I mean, there's a lot of things really, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's one city council order that I thought was it's really kind of came as a bit of a surprise a few weeks ago. It's something, the governor pushed this thing called the housing choice package,
Okay.
and partly because of COVID, there was support with the legislature, and they actually approved this. And one thing that nobody, and it was basically to promote housing growth.
Mhm.
And part of that included a provision to reduce the required majority for certain housing developments from a 2/3
Right.
approval.
But didn't Baker propose that a while ago?
Yes, he did. He did.
Okay.
And the thing is, it sat there and
I
the
see.
legislature didn't really act upon it, but then it
Okay.
finally did in the midst of COVID. And again,
Oh, okay.
I don't know
All
to
right.
what degree the
Yeah.
emergency setting
I
had
haven't followed it. but
accelerated
yeah.
it.
Okay.
But so it passed. Now, it actually came as a bit of a shock, I think, there was a city council meeting where they were discussing the Northwest Alewife quadrangle, not quadrangle
Okay.
zoning petition, which was voted down. Even
Right.
though the planning board gave it a thumbs up. So
Right.
it
Right.
can still have a second life here.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was announced that there was this opinion from the city solicitor that in fact, because there was a certain percentage of housing as part of this development, even though at its core, it was not
Right.
principally a housing development,
Right.
that because of the housing choice legislation,
Legislation. Yeah.
it would require only a simple majority vote in order to for the zoning petition to pass. It didn't have that majority, by the way, but
Right, I didn't think
so
so.
it was
Yeah.
voted down. But that normally you're waiting for 2/3
Interesting.
majority, 6
Yeah.
out of 9 votes, and not 5 out of 9 votes. So right there, the night that they
Hmm.
could have approved it, they said, well,
That's
according
interesting.
to this. So there was a city council order on the agenda last night, calling to have a meeting of, I forget whether it was a housing committee
I
or
didn't read it
whatever.
thoroughly. I should have. Yeah.
Yeah, basically sort of to discuss what this really means.
Okay.
Now, first off, I just want to have some clarity about,
Yeah.
well, what does the
How does that have an
legislation
impact? Yeah.
actually say?
Right.
To what projects does the simple majority? By the way, I prefer the 2/3, and I can give you some good reasons for it.
No,
But
I can see that
you
because
know,
it's pretty crucial. Yeah. It should
right?
have more weight
Yeah,
behind
and I
it.
also don't like the whole concept of one-way zoning. I wrote about this in December 2018 when this was being talked about at the
Right.
city council level. The notion that you would take a 2/3 majority to upzone, but you need
Yeah.
excuse me, you need a bare minimum majority to upzone. But
Right.
if you wanted to actually said, I think we made a mistake, you would need a 2/3 vote in order to go the
Hmm.
other way.
Hmm.
Right. So at that point, you're basically ceding your local authority to the state law,
Yeah.
because, to some
Right.
degree.
Right.
So I have some issues with that. But anyway, it's a little bit unsettled. I'd like to know more about
Yeah.
it. I guess we're just starting to run a little down on time here, but
Yeah. We had just a
so maybe we
few
talk a little
seconds
bit
left.
more about it.
Okay.
But anyway, so that was it's a little bit up in the air, but I think some of the
Yeah.
councilors actually want to take advantage of it to actually drive harder
Okay.
now. So
You're
we'll
right.
see. So
All right. So
anyway,
we will see you in the next segment
we'll be back
very
in a few
soon.